Our president is in the house. This is an exciting day for El Paso. Anytime President Bill Clinton comes to El Paso, our casa es su casa, right? I was standing back there and I was thinking back to 1992, the first time that I ever had the privilege of meeting then Governor Bill Clinton. He was making that 36-hour trip through the United States. He was a candidate for president. He stopped in McAllen, where I was chief of the Border Patrol, and we were asked to provide security for him, which we did. But he stopped in McAllen at 11 p.m. They had thought they were going to get a couple of thousand people. They got 20,000 people. And so it was a great rally. And the thing that sticks out in my mind was that he connected with the crowd and the atmosphere was electric. Next time I saw the president, I saw him in the Oval Office to brief him on border security. And that's when I realized what an impressive individual he was. He talked about how important the border was, and he asked the kinds of questions that someone that appreciates border communities like El Paso would ask. And so, for those of us here today, for those of you that are on Social Security or about to go on Social Security, we have no better friend than President Bill Clinton. He wasn't wealthy when he started, but one thing has remained constant, and that is his love of people and his understanding for programs like Social Security. And if you need Medicare and Medicaid, again, you have no better friend than President Bill Clinton. If you're worried about housing, or if you're a veteran or a family with a veteran, or active military and a family with an active military, you have no better friend than President Bill Clinton. And by the way, in the Clinton family, the Secretary of State is doing a hell of a job, and you It was a remarkable 8 years for our president serving the country, and you know, he balanced the budget and he left us a surplus. That was a Democratic president that did that. It was squandered by somebody else, but he left us a balanced budget and a surplus. And you know, he could have said, I've done my time, I've given it everything that I've got, I'm going to retire. Did he retire? No! He started his foundation, and today, through that foundation, he goes around the world doing good things for people everywhere. Whether it's in Africa, in Europe, in the Far East, in South America, the Caribbean, you've seen the examples he set in Haiti. This is a president that cares about people, and that's why he's here today. I am so honored that I've had the privilege of knowing him and working with him for the last 20 years. But I'm most honored that he would come to El Paso to help me get reelected so we can continue to do the work of the people. This is a great president that loves El Paso, and we want to tell him we love him back. Este es nuestro presidente, él nos quiere y nosotros lo queremos a él también, ¿verdad? So how about everybody standing up and giving a rousing El Paso welcome to former President Bill Clinton, our friend,
for asking me to come here and help. And I want to tell you a story that explains part of why I'm here, but not really why you should vote for him. I love this guy because he's what we in New York call a mensch. He's loyal, he's true, he's strong. You can depend on him. And the night before, I know about Paso. You voted for me in 1992. You voted for me in 1996. The largest single crowd I had running for re-election as president was here in El Paso. Of you, I said, you know, Silver, in 96 when I was here, we had 45,000 people. And he said, we actually had 12,000 more, but they went home because they couldn't get in. There's always more. On the night before the primary election, when Secretary of State Clinton was running for president, I started the morning and I woke up in Corpus Christi, went to Victoria for a rally, went down to McAllen and Brownsville, and we worked our way up. I stopped at Del Rio and Eagle Pass, and I ended the night here. And after the rally in El Paso, he said, come here, I want to give you something. And we were at the airport, so we walked into this room, and there were about 20 pairs of boots there. He knows I love cowboy boots. I got 12, 15 pair. I wear them all the time. So he said, pick a pair. This is your victory present. And I said, don't you think it's a little early? They've outspent us $4 million. They got all this strength in Houston and Dallas and Austin. He said, I don't care. I don't care what the polls say. They don't know our people. It will be a wipeout from McAllen to El Paso, and she will win, Hillary will win Texas 500,000 votes. I don't care what the polls are now. So the next night, she was behind the vote count for 2 hours, but when they were all counted, she won by 101,000 votes, and 40% of the entire margin for the whole state was here in this county. I am wearing my victory present. And you can tell by looking at them that I've worn them a lot in the last 4 years. I need to resell them. But that's not why you should be elected. That's why I should be here. I'm like you. I believe in sticking with your friends and being loyal to people who've helped you. I'm for that, and that's an important value, but that's not why you should be for it. The issue here is simple. Who is more likely to do more in the next 2 years to help bring back the economy of El Paso and America? Who is more likely in the next 2 years to help to improve the education and training we need so our people can get the jobs we can create in the 21st century? Who is more likely in the next 2 years to make sure that all Americans have affordable health care and that we do what is necessary to begin to get control of this long-term debt without privatizing Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security? I don't think that's a close question. I've seen how hard this guy works. Yeah, the first time I saw him, I was running for president. He was in charge of helping with my security and all that. Next thing I know, he's in Congress telling me what I have to do to send money to his district. He was on a very short list of congressmen when I was president that we call the Savior Breath List. And that's because I said, you know, if he comes in here and he wants something, he'll just keep coming until he gets it. So we ought to save our breath and just go and tell him yes the first time. And I have watched him make sure that Fort Bliss is one of the premier military establishments. When I landed here today, the man who is the commander of Fort Bliss, Major General Reyes.mp4, met me. He's a native of El Paso. But he was one of my military aides. And you know, every couple of years, the president gets a military aide from each of the major force services of the Coast Guard. And every one of those young people is thought to have the potential of becoming a 4-star general officer or a 4-star admiral. And I knew when he was a very young man that Dana Guitar was special. And when I got off the plane today and I saw him standing there with his 2 stars and bringing some of his young staff to meet me, I thought, this is the way America ought to work. Every place in America ought to work like this. An opportunity for people without regard to their race, their income, their background, everybody have the same chances. That's what we have to do. So let me switch. That's an important economic issue in El Paso. But he, Congressman Reyes, being perhaps the most respected member of the House in either party on a combination of military intelligence and veterans issues, has made the case for Fort Bliss on the merits. It's a lot easier to help your constituents when you don't have to make up your story. When you just tell them what you know to be the truth. I wouldn't fool with that if I were you. I think that's worth something. It's worth something for the economy, it's worth something for Second thing I want to say is, I regret that this economic collapse, which began in September of 2008, right before the presidential election, and bottomed out in July of 2009, has taken such a terrible toll on America. It didn't have to happen, it shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. Now here are the facts. For the last 500 years in every country, on every continent, if the financial system collapses, it takes between 5 and 10 years to get back to full employment. For 500 years, this is a fact. I regret that President Obama had to run his whole election without knowing this was going to happen. So we all had extraordinary expectations that once this happened, could not be fulfilled because it hadn't happened in 500 years. Worse, for the last couple of 100 years, when buildings like houses and office buildings and factories have been owned by private citizens who had mortgages all over the world, if there's a mortgage collapse, it almost always pushes full employment back to 10 years. Now, as Americans, our job is to beat the odds. We don't need to wait 10 years. We don't need to wait 8 years. We can do better. But to do better, we got to be smart. Now, here are the facts. This thing bottomed out 6 months after Barack Obama took the oath of office and before any of his policies had a chance to have an impact. At the time, our economy had shrunk 7.5%. Because he voted for the Recovery Act, the so-called stimulus, we created a a huge number of jobs, save billions and more, and every single objective expert had looked at it and said if that bill hadn't passed, the unemployment rate would have been about 2 points higher than it was, and we'd be another year or two getting out of this mess. Here are the facts. In the last 2 years, finally, the private economy has produced 4 million jobs. That is more jobs than were produced in the entire 7 years and a half of the previous administration before the economic meltdown. Why would you look at this? And he voted for every one of these policies. Here's another fact. We like to think of our big employers from their military bases and big corporations, and we're grateful for them, bless their heart, but we know most Americans depend on small businesses. Start up and hire. When I was president, and we averaged 220,000 new jobs every month for 8 years, 52% of them came in small businesses, really small businesses. One of the reasons is we dramatically accelerated the role of the Small Business Administration in financing new businesses and their startups. We double loans to Hispanics, we double loans to African Americans, we triple loans to women. And it was great. And what happened? When the other party came in and went back to the old economic policies, they got rid of it. Then what happened? We got a new Congress and a new president, and he voted to dramatically expand the Small Business Administration. So now that the economy's coming back, there'll be more small businesses in El Paso and West Texas and all over America. The good news about America's future is we still have the best system of higher education in the world. The bad news is we've fallen from 1st to 15th in the percentage of our young people with degrees, and one big reason is people are scared to death they're going to run up so much debt that in this economy they will never be able to repay it. But he voted for a bill that will allow everybody who has a federally approved student loan to borrow the money directly from the government to pay a lower interest rate. And here's the most important thing. Every young American from now on that gets a student loan will be able to pay that loan back as a small, fixed percentage of their income, whatever level they earn, for 20 years. That if you depend upon these student loans to get out of college, you will never have to drop out of college again, ever, no matter how much you have to borrow, because you can never have to take I don't believe I put that at risk if I were you. There's all this controversy about health care. And here's what I have to say about it. The health care bill that passed is not perfect, but it's way better than the status quo. Yes. And nobody would pass a bill that's perfect. The Congress has already voted to amend it. They voted to change the small business reporting requirements by an overwhelming bipartisan majority. Why? Because we passed a bill, and then they can work on improving it. But if you repeal this thing, is something you need to know. In the House of Representatives, where Silver serves, every bill can pass with a majority vote. But in the United States Senate, the only bill that can always pass with a majority vote is a budget. Everything else is subject to the so-called filibuster, which means if somebody's against it, they can make you get 60 votes or 60% to start. Now here's the deal on health care. We spend 17.5% of our income on health care. Nobody else spends more than 11.8. You know how much that is? That's between $850 billion and $1 trillion a year you're paying for health care that doesn't make you healthier. Everybody else insures 100% of the folks. We insure 84%. So you can criticize him all you want. All I know is there are 2.6 million young Americans, 26 and younger, who are on their family's health insurance policy, who used to be uninsured, who have insurance today, because of those that did. I just came from giving a speech to a group of people that provide internet services to banks, and on the way out, this guy said to me, he said, you know, I thought I was against this health care bill, but I've got a friend, just a middle-class working person, and his wife, and she had terrible cancer problems with massive costs in treatment, and it looks like she's going to survive, but it would have bankrupted their family. And that's one of the first things that was covered, and instead of being bankrupt, they pay $450 a month based on their limited small business income. I don't believe I get rid of that problem. And I think that he deserves to be reelected because he did do that. Because he did do that. I think he deserves to be reelected because he said it's not enough to send kids to college. You have to support vocational education programs, two-year programs, worker retraining programs. Some of the biggest unemployment problems we have in America are middle-educated, middle-aged, non-college educated people. They deserve the training in the areas where the jobs will be available. I think we ought to do that. I also want to say something else. The Supreme Court legalized these super PACs. You know, where corporations and rich individuals, and in theory, labor unions, can sneak around, put money in the PAC, claim that they have nothing to do with the candidate. They're just investing in what they believe is right for America. Well, who gave you money? We don't have to say that. So they're making robocalls against him. They'll run ads against him. Lord only knows what they're going to say against him. And if I did it, I'd have to identify myself, and you can call me or have the press call and say, what are you doing going after Congressman Reyes? Stand up like a man and defend yourself. Where in the culture I was raised in, if you weren't man or woman enough to stand up and look somebody in the eye when you disagreed with them and you oppose them, you ought to keep your mouth shut. You shouldn't sneak around. So who are all these people putting all this money into this stuff? You think they just really believe every incumbent member of Congress should be washed away so that pure as the driven snow, all the new people can make all the problems go away? Give me a break, folks. Follow the money and you know what to do. So if I know anything about the values of the people in this district, you don't like people who do sneak attacks. You don't mind an honest argument. You don't mind an honest disagreement. But it ought to be like a football team, where when you get down in your three-point stance, you can look your opponent dead in the eye, and if he beats you, you know it is fair and square. No more sneaking around. Stay for a guy that's for open government. You know what he's doing. The El Paso I know, since I first came here 40 years ago, was never a place in the darkest economic times, has never been a place that was not full of honor and openness and straightforwardness, would never sanction sneak attacks by people who could hide money and late night and strike without identifying themselves. I don't mind what anybody ever says about me or even Hillary. Well, sometimes I'm an But if somebody says it, at least they'll stand up, put their shoulders back, look you in the eye and say, I think you're wrong and here's why. You got to respect that. That's what America is all about. Sneaking around is what America is not all about, and you should say no to it. me, he's been good to Hillary, he's been good to my family. As far as I'm concerned, I'll be there with him till the last dog dies. But that's not why you should be for him. You should be for him because he has been a faithful representative. He's helped you economically. He's helped you in education. He's helped you in he's helped support the institutions that make our Paso strong. He's good for the future. He's got programs that are good for the young people, good for the old people, and good for everybody in between. That's why you ought to be for him. You cannot afford to put a guy who is nowhere near out of steam out to pasture. He is just getting warmed up. Thank you. Thank you for everything you did for me. Thank you for everything you did for Hillary. Thank you for everything you do to defend America. And thank you for sending Silvestre Reyes to Congress. Just do it for me one more time. Because of the intense interest and support for Hillary and for President Obama in the 2008 primary, we had an unprecedentedly large turnout in the Democratic primary. Much larger in 2008 than in 2006 or 2010. The thing I'm worried about is that a majority of the people will support him, but some of that majority may not show up. So let me remind you, early voting starts May the 14th, goes to May the 25th. So I got one of those early voting bracelets that says Reyes works. And if you're like me and you're becoming forgetful, you ought to wear one of these because then you won't be able to forget. But I want you, if you agree with what I said, to make up your mind that between now and when you leave, you're going to ask somebody every single day to vote for him and vote early. And then the primary is on May the 29th, right? So you get to vote early the 15th and the 24th, and then you have the actual vote on the 29th. This is really important. And I saved it till last because every election, because no politician wants to make the people mad. I mean, the people got to hire you, so you don't want to make them mad. But I'm going to risk making you mad because I'm not running for you. And you know I love you, so I hope I can be honest. The decision not to vote is a vote. Staying home is voting. And when you got all these sneak attack ads, I still have no idea what this super PAC's going to do between now and when early voting opens and closes. And you don't either. All I know is if the vote total is anywhere close to where it was in 2008 in this primary, he'll win. I do know that. And you know that. And it will also be a better reflection of how the people feel. How can you be patriotic in supporting the men and women in uniform in Fort Bliss or in Afghanistan or any point in between and not even trouble yourselves to go vote? How can you say I'm worried about this, that, or the other issue and not even trouble yourselves to go vote? How can you be quiet when you leave here knowing most people in El Paso, notwithstanding this great crowd, did not show up here today? They're about their own lives and doing something else and not talk to them. So I'm telling you, if you just look at the numbers, it took my breath away when I saw how many people voted here in 2008 and how many fewer there were in 2006 and 2010. We need you and everybody like you that we can possibly get to the polls. So you came here, you clapped, you believe in this man. You believe in what he's fought for, what he's voted for, what he can do for you in the next 2 years. It only counts if somebody shows up. And if you really believe what you said of all those people at Fort Bliss, if they can give what they give to the United States of America, the least the rest of us can do is show up and vote starting on May the 14th. Thank you very much, all.
Not so fast. We started a tradition back in '96. We want our great president to always have a reason to come back, and we figured giving him some of these snazzy boots. And there's two of them. Just so you know, it's got the symbol of our great country, the American Eagle, and the 42nd president on there, and the years he was there. The only thing we could get in there is that he left us a surplus and a balanced budget.